You've described the current environment in various ways as a non-market economy, as a political economy, as a new paradigm. Tell us more about the new paradigm.
Well, I think there are three big forces that are at work that have not existed in our lifetimes before. And they are a long-term debt cycle. And we've reached the part of that cycle where interest rates are at zero and monetary policy is a major driver. What this looks like in a world where we're going to print a lot of money, monetize debt, and so on. There are three stages really in monetary policy. And the cycle that we are in, the whole world cycle, began in 1945. That was the beginning of the New World Order. 1944, we established the dollar as the world's reserve currency. It was connected to gold. And then until 1971, that broke up. And so there was an arc in which central banks have the capacity to produce demand by producing credit. Just sort of hit a button and poof, and demand rises because credit comes out. But when interest rates no longer are effective and hit zero, as they did in 2008, you go to a monetary policy, which I call monetary policy 2, which is the printing of money and the buying of financial assets. And with that, there was the implications of that. Lots of liquidity in the world, bidding up asset prices. And we had an environment which was very good for capitalism, corporate tax cuts. All of that caused asset prices to rise. And then, of course, it also contributes to the wealth gap. So this first influence, monetary policy, which I hope we'll talk about, the long-term debt cycle and monetary policy, is an overarching influence. It's important to understand where we are in that cycle. Related to that cycle is also the wealth gap cycle, periods of prosperity that occur after wars, during periods of peace. There are periods of peace because there's a dominant power that no one wants to fight, and you have a prosperous period. And during those periods, there's a lot of development of credit, a lot of also expansion of prosperity and so on, technology development, and that creates wealth gaps. And those wealth gaps, and then along with those wealth gaps, values gaps and political gaps develop. So our wealth gap is now the largest since the 1930s. And the political gap is also very large. And so that influence is a giant influence. So that's number two. And then number three, as the major influence, is the rise of a great power to challenge the existing world leadership of the United States. And these cycles have happened over periods of time. That competition, that wars of various types, trade wars and the like, is another factor. So those factors are in place and were in place before we had the coronavirus. The coronavirus came along and is a knockback, and it has big financial implications.